What's up, guys? Let me start by asking you a question. Do you know how you were made? Okay, some of you may be thinking like, where do babies come from? My parents already had that awkward conversation with me. Please, don't make me have it again. Well, you can all relax. That isn't exactly what I mean. But over the next few weeks, we're gonna talk about some things that have to do with how you were made. And those things include stuff like puberty and sex and other potentially awkward topics that might make us cringe a little bit or a whole lot. But here's the thing, talking about these topics is really important for us. After all, the church should be the safest place for you to talk about anything, including topics of sex and sexuality. Because with so many thoughts, opinions, and YouTube videos dedicated to telling you everything you need to know about your sexuality, your body, and what you should do with both, it's hard to know what's actually true about the way we were made. Let's just all start by admitting that we all need help understanding ourselves, especially in middle school. These wonderful years of change are also full of one of the most interesting phases of human development, puberty. Yikes. I know you're like, I came to church, not health class. Please don't show us a weird video. Don't worry, I've been through puberty too, so I'm a professional. Wait, is this health class? Okay, so when I was in middle school and I was going through these years of change, I was doing something called the youth choir, which was this choir that I was in at my church, where we would go and we would sing in front of the entire church every once in a while. Now, I thought I was like decent at singing. I was like, okay, I got this. I'm good enough for a choir. And one day they told me that I had a solo. I was very terrified, and I was also very excited because I was like, well, now everybody gets to see just how good I am at singing. Practices went fine. Then the day that we were actually singing, I was up in front of the church and I was supposed to sing I had this like one very short line, and it was supposed to go, well, let me show you what actually happened. I said something like, it is you, it did not go well. I was very embarrassed. My voice cracked, and it was like so weird. I was like, why is this happening to me? See, I told you I was an expert. This phase of your life is all sorts of hard, confusing, and awkward. I know because I've also been there. But isn't it weird how some people act like all this change and confusion is like a good thing? Sometimes people talk about it like once we've started going through it, we've arrived. We've officially grown up in some way or another. They talk about it like it's this thing we're supposed to look forward to happening in our lives. It's like puberty is supposed to be this thing that we can't wait to experience. Then it happens, and we wonder what they were talking about because in reality, it's kind of confusing and awkward and strange. Our voice starts cracking, like when you're singing a solo, or we suddenly grow wider and taller, sometimes faster than the people around us do, making us stand out. We get these wonderful little monsters called zits all over our face. Okay, I had a lot of acne when I was in middle school. We start experiencing feelings that we aren't sure how to explain. All of it leaves us feeling a little out of control and confused. You see, we all go through puberty at our own pace. For those who reach puberty before most of their friends, it can feel awkward and lonely. When you go through it with a bunch of friends, it's not so bad. You have your friends to lean on and fit in with. You almost feel normal. And then for the people who are last to go through puberty, they sometimes wonder when it's gonna happen to them. They might even feel a little left out. We all go through puberty at different times, but I think one of the biggest issues most of us have when it comes to puberty is this: people notice. No matter when it happens or how it changes, all those changes can cause us to stand out. They're things people can see. And when we know people are noticing something about the way we're made, we can feel insecure. Maybe we start comparing ourselves to other people. If we just looked like her or just had his build, things wouldn't be so awkward, right? Maybe we'd even go as far to say, I wish something was different about the way I was made. Maybe you've felt this way before. Maybe you even feel this way right now. I think if we're honest, most of us would say that there's just something about this phase of life that leaves us feeling uncomfortable in our own skin. Maybe you've even started to wonder if God is trying to make your life miserable by forcing you to go through this phase. Maybe you've wondered why God made you this way, why he didn't make you one way or different in another way. If that's you, I want to just remind you that you're not alone. Every human being who is older than you, myself included, the expert, has felt the same way at some point in their lives. And I know this may seem like a stretch, but what if this difficult phase of life doesn't actually show us that God made a mistake in the way he created us? What if it actually points to something really unique and special about the way God made you? There was actually something written a long time ago that I think can help us understand more about how we were made. If you're new to the Bible, it's helpful to know that this big book is split into two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament tells stories of the way human beings connected to God before Jesus came to earth. We're gonna look at a book today from the Old Testament called Psalms. The book of Psalms contains a bunch of ancient songs and poems, most of which were written by a guy named David. David was actually a king who, even though he made some mistakes, loved God with all of his heart. And he had a lot to say about our relationship with God who created us. In one of David's Psalms, he gave us some details about how we were made that I think might be helpful for us in this specific phase of life. Let's take a look. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. David started by saying that God created us inside and out. In other words, God is actually the one who put us together. He shaped us before we were born. He knit us together. That means that God created each and every single part of us with detail and with purpose. That's pretty cool if you ask me. Let's see what else David had to say. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. Let's stop here and look at a few of the words David used to talk about the way we're made. Wonderful is a word we all know, right? If something is wonderful, that means it's magnificent, or it's amazing, or it's brilliant, or even breathtaking. That's breathtaking. Well, David said that God made us to be all of those things. We're wonderful creations. Because of the way God made us, every single part of us, our bodies, our minds, our souls, is wonderful, even when it doesn't feel like it. The other word David used here is fearfully. Now, that one's interesting, right? The word fearfully here doesn't probably mean what you think it means. Here, it means a sense of wonder or inspiration, something that makes us say, wow. It's almost as if David was thinking about all the unique details about the way God created him, and it just left him feeling inspired by how great and powerful God is. God's love for us is so big that he created us in a way that's extraordinary and unique. That's what David meant when he used the word fearfully. David was confident in his belief that God was wonderful. He believed that everything God created was wonderful. And if God made you and I, that means you and I are wonderful too. Let's keep reading. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. I love this part of what David said because I think it has the power to change the way we see ourselves. David believed that before we were even born, God was shaping every detail of who we are. Before we even took a breath, God had a plan and a purpose for our lives. As he was creating us, God knew everything about us. That means nothing about the way we were made is a mistake. God, who makes everything wonderful, did it all on purpose with a purpose. God made each of us special and wonderful. In fact, some of us have talents that are uniquely our own. Did you know my talent is being able to catch things without my hand? Watch. I'll show you. Ready? Oh gosh. So close. I'm actually not good at this. Right on the tooth. Okay, Steve. Okay, sorry. Okay, maybe you actually have a trick that's impressive, unlike mine, which is, I don't even think I'm that good at that. But maybe you've got something similar that you're really good at. Like you can do cartwheels or flips or do a double somersault off a diving board. Or maybe like me, you like music and you've got this talent and you can play guitar or piano like nobody's business. Maybe you've just seen a video where somebody does something so awesome that you're like, that's amazing. Well, I think it's cool to see God's creativity through the amazing and unique gifts that we each have. So much care and detail went into the way that each of us were made. David's psalm reminds us of this truth. Because God made you, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. There isn't a single detail that's a mistake. God even created us knowing that this weird, awkward, confusing phase would be a part of our lives. Even when it doesn't feel like it, we can be confident that the changes we're experiencing right now are actually an incredible part of how God designed us. I know puberty can be difficult, but what if all the changes and developments happening in your body actually point to the greatness of God who made your body to do incredible things? Yes, it's awkward. Yes, it's weird, but none of it is by accident. In fact, it's actually by design. Remember, because God made you, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Even in the middle of a phase that feels anything but wonderful, God's design for you is incredible. So you can be confident that in any phase of your life, you are a wonderful creation of God who loves you. So no matter what phase of development you're in, you can choose to allow David's words to impact you in a positive way. And you can start by doing these two things. First, receive it. Choose to believe that God created you the way that you are. Believe that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Let the truth about how you are made influence the way you see yourself and others, especially during puberty. What might change about the way you saw yourself if you believed you were really fearfully and wonderfully made by God? Second, remember it. Memorize this verse, at least the fearfully and wonderfully made part. Repeat it to yourself throughout the day. Write it on your mirror in your bathroom. Put it on your computer or phone. Do whatever you need to do to be reminded of how God made you, how He sees you, and the fact that He loves you. When you feel different than what this verse says, look back at it to remind yourself of what God says is true about you. Before we talk about sex and the other things you probably didn't expect us to talk about at church, we need to start by understanding ourselves a little better. Middle school can be tough for all sorts of reasons, puberty being one of them. But believing that you are fearfully and wonderfully made by God can change the way you view yourself and others. It can make all the difference in understanding how you were made. As we wrap up, can I just thank you for letting us talk about one of the most awkward parts about middle school? I know it's hard, but trust me, you're gonna be okay. In fact, you're actually better than okay. Because God made you, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. As we head out today, I want you to think about this question. What gets in the way of you believing that you're fearfully and wonderfully made? I caught one in my pocket too.